Good evening and welcome to the Paramount City Council Chambers. This is a special notice that pursuant to Executive Order N-29-20 executed by the Governor of California on March 17, 2020, and as a response to mitigating the spread of coronavirus known as COVID-19, the meeting of the City Council scheduled for Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 at 6 p.m. will allow members of the public to participate and to address the City Council during the open session of the meeting via live stream and or teleconference only. And with that, I will turn it over to Mayor Brenda Olmos to open our meeting. Mayor Olmos.
Thank you, John. Good evening, staff, residents, and guests that are with us this evening. We'll go ahead and call to order the May 4th Paramount City Council. To order, we will have the Pledge of Allegiance done by Councilmember Peggy Lemons and the invocation done by Pastor Ken Corver from Emmanuel Church. Please stand.
Please stand and join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Lord, we thank you for our city, your city. We thank you, Lord, for the way you came and you washed feet, and then you told us that if we did the same, that we would be blessed, and that you were setting us an example that we're to do. So we thank you for this beautiful city that you have changed, and you've made green and clean and blessing and safe. There's so many good things going on, and we give you thanks and we give you praise. We pray for our mayor and our vice mayor and our council members and our staff. Would you allow them to be very wise and very humble and to make decisions that honor you and serve the entire city? So bless your city and bring your unity, your shalom, your prosperity, and we pray that we would honor you. We give you Mr. Hanson, who has served here for so many years, and we commend him to you. We pray for healing for Mr. Hanson, and we pray for peace for Vivian, and we ask your hand upon them. Please lead this meeting. We pray in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Corver. Okay, can I get a roll call of council members, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Here.
Councilmember Guillen.
Here.
Councilmember Lemons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cuellar Stallings.
Here.
Mayor Olmos.
I am here. All right, before we move forward tonight with the agenda, I would like to suggest that we take item 16, which is the air monitoring status, out of the order and move it to the first item after the consent calendar, given that we have two guest presenters here from AQMD for this item. May I have a motion for that change, please?
So moved. Second.
So I have a motion by Cuellar Stallings and a second by Lemons. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cuellar Stallings.
Yes.
Mayor Olmos.
Yes. Thank you for that. Item 16 will be heard as the first item under new business. Additionally, I understand that we actually have a subsequent need item to be added to the agenda. Mr. Moreno, can you please provide a brief explanation of the item?
Yes, we do, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much. We would like to add an item to tonight's agenda involving the possible funding of a rewards program for Paramount High School and college students who have received their vaccine. Statistics for LA County show that only a small percentage of this age group is getting the vaccination. Therefore, we see this as an immediate need and a public health benefit for this as the summer school session is quickly approaching us, and that starts next month. So by considering this item on tonight's agenda rather than at a later date, the council's action will allow us to adequate time to develop a public information campaign about this program. This would then in turn allow those who are interested in the program adequate time to schedule an appointment and receive the vaccine and possibly the reward. We have a much more detailed report that Mr. Johnson will provide should this item be added to tonight's agenda. So just a reminder, if the council would like to add this to tonight's agenda, it does require a 4/5 vote of the city council. And that concludes my explanation about this proposed addition to tonight's agenda.
Thank you, John. So with that, may I have a motion to add this item as the last item under new business, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a first by Lemons, second by Aguayo. Can I have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen.
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cuellar Stallings.
Yes.
Mayor Olmos.
Yes. So thank you to that, and the subsequent needs item will be added as the last item under new business. So with that, we will move on to presentations. Good evening, everyone. Tonight, we are going to recognize a number of special observations taking place in May. We will also congratulate a local institution on a fantastic milestone. So first, we'll start off with National Public Works Week. National Public Works Week will be celebrated this year from May 16th through the 22nd. The theme is Stronger Together, with a focus on the role that public works departments play in creating great places to live. Our own Public Works Department does an outstanding job of keeping the city in very good shape. It's all about infrastructure. Our streets, parks, landscaped areas, safe and secure water systems, and so much more are top-notch thanks to their professionalism and dedication. As we celebrate National Public Works Week, we recognize their fine work. Thank you, City of Paramount Public Works teams. We appreciate you very much. Next, we move on to National Building Safety Month. One of the most important functions of a local government is to make sure that buildings and other structures are safe for people to be in. National Building Safety Month, sponsored by the International Code Council, recognizes this job and the people who perform it. The theme for this year is Prevent, Prepare, Protect. Building Code Saves. We have a vibrant building and safety section in our planning department. In 2020, there were 399 building permits issued and a whopping 7,158 inspections performed. These inspections of homes and other buildings were primarily done during the pandemic. Our staff of inspectors have truly been essential workers, and we appreciate the work that they and their staff do year in and year out. Thanks again to the staff and department heads of our two departments. You are very much greatly appreciated. Next, we move on to National Military Appreciation Month. National Military Appreciation Month is celebrated each May and encourages everyone to honor current and former members of the U.S. Armed Forces, including those who have died in the pursuit of freedom. There are numerous ways to support our military members and veterans. Send a care package to a soldier. If you see someone in uniform or know a veteran, thank them for their service or surprise them with a coffee, dessert, or a drink. Businesses can honor and recognize Military Appreciation Month through their websites, social media, and/or newsletters. You can donate to a veteran or military charity or hire a veteran for your business. In Paramount, we honor our residents who have served or who are currently serving throughout the year. Our Veterans Memorial at the Civic Center is dedicated to the 43 Paramount residents who died fighting for our country, reaching back to World War II. If you haven't, you should visit the memorial one day and pay your respects. We celebrate our veterans at an annual Veterans Day event. Last year, of course, we couldn't hold it live, but we hope to do again in November. Again, the city's Boulevard of Heroes features streetlight banners along Paramount Boulevard saluting current members of the armed forces. These are residents or those who lived in town prior to joining and have an immediate family member here. If you know of such an individual, please call 562-220-2121. Next, we have Mental Health Awareness Month. Would Victor Sanchez of Community Family Guidance Center please join us? I'm sorry, this is Bill Cinco, everybody, Executive Director. He's in for Victor Sanchez. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Each year, millions of Americans face the reality of living with a mental illness. The goal of this month is to raise awareness about mental health, fight the stigma connected to these issues, educate the public, and advocate for policies that support people with mental illnesses and their families. This year's message is "You are not alone." This theme focuses on the healing value of connecting in safe ways and recognizing that it's okay not to be okay. This is especially important since so many people, young school children to seniors, have struggled with the isolation created by the COVID-19 restrictions. The hope is to become a nation where no one feels alone in their struggle. Community Family Guidance Center offers helpful services to the youth of our city. Would you like to say a few words about your organization?
Well, thank you very much for this honor. It's been an honor to serve the city of Paramount and the children of Paramount for the last 45 years. This year has been a difficult year for many people, many families. The severity of our cases has greatly increased, as you can imagine, because of the pandemic. So it's nice to be honored for the hard work that all my therapists are doing right now. We have seen about over 800 cases so far this year from the city of Paramount, children from the city of Paramount. And we continue to serve them as best we can. And we say if you need help, come and see us. There are flyers at the Parks and Rec department here for getting a hold of us. We have a toll-free number. So feel free to contact the Parks and Rec department here, and they will put you in contact with us. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
And thank you for serving our community. We appreciate all the services that you offer. Next, we move on to National Senior Health and Fitness Day. National Senior Health and Fitness Day is an annual health and wellness event for our older adults. This month, it will be May 26th. We will be holding an exercise class in Paramount Park for our seniors. Local health agency LA Care will sponsor the event and provide snacks, water, and an elastic exercise band for all taking part. National Senior Health and Fitness Day promotes the importance of regular physical activity. This is a message we offer throughout the year at our senior center, and we're pleased to take part in this special day. We have really gone the extra mile during the pandemic to stay in touch with our seniors. And I want to thank our extraordinary staff for doing such a great job during this difficult time. Next, would Jeremy Ekno of Los Cerritos YMCA please come up? Jeremy is here to help us proclaim National Water Safety Month. This highlights water awareness and swim safety and takes place in May, since swim activity is starting to increase across the country. Paramount has long had an active aquatics program that has included swimming lessons and water safety components for a variety of ages. The Los Cerritos YMCA is well known for its expertise in these areas and partners with the city to provide services and classes at Paramount Park. Not only does the YMCA have a history of specializing in this area, as a nonprofit, they are also excellent at finding grants and other funding sources. In fact, a recent water safety class held at our pool was grant funded. Thank you, Jeremy. Paramount residents learn things like how to get kids adjusted to being in the water and what to do if you see someone in the water that needs help. The class will be repeated this summer. Jeremy, would you like to say a few words about your organization?
I first just want to thank the city staff and the council. We really are honored and proud of our partnership with the city and the programs we offer. You know, we all grew up learning to swim, or many of us did, but it's one of the leading causes of accidental death in children. And finding opportunities and ways to get underserved populations in and learning to swim is paramount. We truly appreciate just the openness that the city has. We work with 4 cities, and I will say, since I'm here, Paramount was the first one, during the pandemic to make sure that services were still there for residents, particularly in swimming. We had to go in and meet the restrictions brought on by COVID, but we've still been teaching kids to swim, making sure that they could get in the pool. Are excited to do it, excited about gearing up for the summer and getting going again this year. So thank you. Yeah, thank you.
So I'm going to state a fun fact really quick. How many of us council members learned how to swim at Paramount Park, the Paramount Pool? Right, that's what I thought. And me too. It's quite a few of us. Well, there's classes taking place this summer, Councilmember Lemons. There you go, Jeremy. Thank you so much. Thank you for all you do for us. We appreciate it. All right. Last but not least, we have, would Kevin Lindsay please join me? Tonight, community, we are celebrating a very special anniversary for one of our city's major businesses. On January 30th, 1921, Roy Lindsay opened the doors to Lindsay Lumber. And I'm sure everybody knows Lindsay Lumber is on the corner of Somerset and Paramount Boulevard. Now, 100 years later, still owned by the family, 4 generations strong, Lindsay Lumber is a landmark in the Paramount community. The first location was on the east side of Paramount Boulevard, just south of Alondra. They moved to their current spot at Paramount and Somerset in the 1980s. As a leading purveyor of lumber and building materials in town for a century, I think I can safely say that Lindsay has many ways built our city. As such, we are so pleased to recognize this amazing history tonight. Also with us to say happy birthday from the Paramount Chamber of Commerce, both on Zoom, our treasurer, Dr. Max Martinez, and Executive Director, Barbara Croson. Max and Barbara? He's our local dentist.
Hi, am I on?
Hi, Dr. Max. We can hear you.
Hi. Oh, good. Can you see me? Can't see me at all?
Yeah, we could see you too.
Great. Kevin, we at the Paramount Chamber of Commerce also want to join in the celebration and congratulate Lindsay Lumber on the milestone. Wow, 100 years. And Kevin, you don't look a day for 50, so you're looking good. And it's only fitting that we are here with you, as I learned today that Lindsay Lumber was one of the first businesses to join the chamber back in 1925. Through 4 generations, your businesses have flourished with the times and has been the icon in the Paramount community. And this is before it was called Paramount. As our mayor said, W. Roy Lindsay, Kevin, your grandfather, served on the chamber board and early on served as president in 1926 and again in 1938. And you, Kevin, continued leadership, later serving on the chamber board from 1995 to 2013, and served as president not once, but 3 times, because you didn't get it right the first time. In the year 2000, 2001, and 2008. And then when you decided to step down from the board, your son Victor followed in your footsteps, served on the chamber board from 2015 to 2019. Lindsay Lumber's contributions are too numerous to mention here, but I'll name a few. The generous donations that golf classic, the donations that you gave to the annual fiesta, and the donations, help, and materials to the opening and the remodeling of the Business Resource Center, which is used by the entire community and brings education and information to help new business entrepreneurs into Paramount. But most of all, the most gift of all, Kevin, to a lot of us, and definitely to me, is your unsurpassed lifelong friendship. So on behalf of the Paramount Chamber Board and the Chamber's entire membership, we would like to present a small token of appreciation to you and Lindsay Lumber for your 100 years here in Paramount. This beautiful clock and this inscription reads, here, Lindsay Lumber, in honor of 100 years of contribution and services to the Paramount Chamber of Commerce. You know, this clock is very appropriate because even throughout the many years with Lindsay Lumber, time will always go on. Kevin, Lindsay Lumber, congratulations for 100 years. Before I get off, if I could have Madam Mayor a little moment of personal privilege. Kevin, as an extra perk, I hope your golf game has been improving and I'll be working on it, because I would like to personally invite you to this year's Paramount Golf Classic that's happening in a couple weeks as our guest. So you better start working on your golf game. Congratulations, Kevin.
No excuses, no excuses.
He said yes, Max. He said yes.
Kevin.
Yay.
Was Barbara going to speak? Okay. We're ready for you, Barbara.
Am I just going to speak, not be on camera?
We see you.
Oh, okay, great. Kevin, I just wanted to share a little personal thing. Lindsay Lumber, a business like that in town, it's a real institution. Everybody in town has to come to Lindsay Lumber at some point in their time because they have either a problem at home or a project that they're working on. So your company has been a part of everyone's life for the last 100 years. I don't think there's a single home in Paramount that hasn't had to come and visit you. They come and they share their problem or their project, and you find a solution. And so I'm kind of a DIY kind of person myself, and I relate to that. So from the Chamber and from the community, we just say thank you for all that you've committed and really been a part of this community. We have a certificate here for you as well that we will be bringing by.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Max. Dr. Max. So just to add, Kevin Lindsay is actually a third-generation family member that is still in that store today. That's amazing. And before I present you with all these, I do have a personal story for myself that kind of goes back to my childhood. So when my dad wanted to build something in the house, he would always say, Mija, do you want to go to the store with me? And it always depended on what store. And he goes, I'm going to go to the lumber store. And I was like, yeah, I want to go to the lumber store because they always had candy by the cashiers. And what a best way, right? I get to go with my dad to run an errand and get candy. So that was the store that I always went to get candy and wood. So thank you for that childhood memory with my dad. I know, right? So on behalf of the City of Paramount, we have some recognitions to give you. We have a certificate for you. And we also have this beautiful, beautiful plaque that says Lindsay Lumber Company from 1921 to 2021 in celebration of your 100th anniversary here in the City of Paramount. So this is for you as well as the basket. Parks and Rec did a great job on the basket, so this is for you too. So would you like to say a few words?
It's pretty bad when you can remember when there are cow pastures and dropping lumber in the cow pasture and have to walk around. That's how far back we go. Thank goodness my grandfather chose this city to settle in when it was Hines, because this has been the best city for a small business to grow up and to continue in. So many other cities don't treat the small businesses the way Paramount does. And the council and everybody have always been just first rate with us. And the appreciation will just go on and on. So I want to thank you. I also have some very close friends that I've made over the years. And Dr. Max is one of the best dentists around, so I'll give him a plug. Not much of a golfer, but but neither am I. So anyway, I really appreciate this, and I thank you for this honor. It just shows if you live long enough and hang in long enough, you can get some honors. Thank you very much.
So that ends our public presentations tonight, and I want to thank everyone who joined us, either here in person or via Zoom. And again, you make our community a great place to live. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll move on to City Council public comment updates.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much. We have two residents that spoke at the April 20th, 2021 City Council meeting that we are following up on. The first resident was Mr. Alfredo Buenuelos, and Mr. Buenuelos would like the city to provide training for elected and appointed officials. The follow-up to that is that at that meeting, the city attorney indicated at the end of the public comment period that ethics training is made available to all elected and appointed officials. But since COVID-19, the training has been available online, not in person. I also reported that each commissioner was provided a copy of the city's Code of Conduct for elected and appointed officials. The next resident that spoke that we're following up on tonight was Mr. Jose de Leon. And Mr. De Leon requested that the records pertaining to his Public Records Act request be disclosed immediately because it has been more than 10 days since he submitted his request. At the April 20th council meeting, the city clerk did explain that the 10-day language stated in the California Public Records Act is commonly misperceived as the time frame in which to produce documents. However, that is not the case. The Public Records Act specifically states that agencies must respond within 10 days to notify the requester whether records exist and will be disclosed. The city then must produce responsive records promptly within a reasonable time frame. The time it takes to produce, gather, and review the records really depends on the size and scale of the request. Mr. De Leon was notified that staff is compiling and reviewing the appropriate documents and will produce them within a reasonable time frame. And that concludes the City Council public comment updates for April 20th, Mayor.
Thank you, John. All right, we're going to move on to public comments. Do we have any?
Yes,
ahead.
Madam Mayor, we have one oral public comment for general, and we have two email public comments for general period. And then for item number 16, we have 4 oral and 2 email. So we'll start off once again with the 1 oral and 2 email general public comments.
Hello?
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Alejandro Yanez.
This is him.
Hi, Mr. Yanez. We're calling regarding a request for public comment for general comment period. You'll have 3 minutes, which will begin now.
Okay. Good afternoon. Continuing to show the discrimination that's going on in our city in regards to handball, I wanted to point out the city recently made an announcement that handball is going to be open at Roosevelt School on Sundays and Saturdays from 8 to 5. The reason why I'm telling you that's it's a form of discrimination is because skate park doesn't have to have reservation. Skate park doesn't have to have, it's open from Sunday to Sunday, from sun up to sundown. Paramount residents don't have to make reservations to skate at skate park. But handball players, we're limited to the amount of hours you could play, the amount of time that we could play, and who could sign up. People don't even vote enough in the city, and yet you want people to register to vote? another thing, a comment a council member made from the handball survey about her daughter feeling unsafe and having to park illegally on 2nd Street and then walk all the way around to get to the basketball courts where she heard rumors of what was going on at the handball courts. But that council person never actually herself came to speak to the handball players ever. Yet she's going to believe something her daughter said without her going to find out who she's speaking against or who she's talking about. I think that's unfair. If you're gonna lead the community, come out and talk to the community. Don't just believe rumors. That's just a bunch of hearsay. I want to wish you women a happy Mother's Day. Hope you guys have a good one.
Okay, Madam Mayor, now to the 2 emailed public comments.
Thank you, Mr. Moreno. The first comment is from Andrea Crow with the Paramount Library. Good evening, Mayor Olmos, council members, and the City of Paramount. Paramount Library will reopen for select in-person services on Monday, May 10th. The library will open at a limited capacity and will adhere to public health protocols, including maintaining 6 feet of physical distancing and requiring masks indoors. In-person customers will be able to browse collections, check out and return items, use public computers for up to 1 hour, and have brief interactions with reference librarians. Residents can learn more about these services and the library's open hours by going online to lacountylibrary.org/reopening. Thank you. And the next comment is from Jenny. Hello, City Council. I'd like to know if the city is making City of Paramount Summer Day Camp inclusive to the special needs community, and if so, what does it entail? For next year's budget, how much is allocated to the special needs community, and how is that determined? Has the city created questionnaires or reached out to the over 1,400 students with an IEP in our district? Furthermore, I'd like to know how the effectiveness of recreational programs that receive funding through taxpayer dollars are measured. Who keeps those programs accountable in regards to enrollment fees, coach background clearance, and recruiting? Why is this information not made publicly available? That concludes the written public comments, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Heidi. Some of those questions that she had, didn't we answered in our last meeting when we talked about the budget, special needs?
I believe at one point we did discuss we have a $5,000 allocated in this current
Correct.
fiscal year's budget for special needs programs. I believe in her comment, if I'm not, she's asking how much we're going to allocate for next year.
Okay.
So we don't bring the proposed
Sure.
budget to the council till June, so we'll have that
Perfect.
information for her. So we could definitely get back to the resident
Perfect.
to inform her about this.
Thank you, John. All right, that ends our public comments. We'll go ahead and move on to our consent calendar. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
So I have a motion by Lemons and a second by Aguayo. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen, Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cuellar Stallings,
Yes.
Mayor Olmos.
Yes. Okay, so now we are moving our item number 16, item number 16, our oral report for air monitoring status from the South Coast Air Quality Management District.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. We're all familiar with this topic. Back in 2016, the South Coast Air Quality Management District found unusually high levels of hexavalent chromium in the air in our city. This was the start of a very comprehensive air monitoring campaign that was launched by the South Coast AQMD. It was also the start of what I considered a strong working partnership between the city and the AQMD that is still alive and in place today. We were recently informed by our partners at the AQMD that they will need to pull back on the monitoring duties here in Paramount. This means that the city, with city council consideration, will need to step in and take over the air monitoring responsibilities, which would involve hiring our own consultants and contractors. Now, in early talks with AQMD staff, AQMD has made it clear to us that they will provide technical support to the city during this transition should we decide to head in that way. In other words, they will be here for us as we transition. We do have two guest speakers with us tonight, and the first is AQMD board member, Ms. Vanessa Delgado, and then Executive Officer, Mr. Wayne Nastry.
Good evening. I think this is correct. Yeah. So thank you, Mayor and City Council, for having us here tonight, and especially Mayor Olmos for letting me know about this issue. My name is Vanessa Delgado. I'm the Vice Chair for the AQMD, and I wanted to come tonight personally to be here and let you know that I really do mean it. We really do mean it that the AQMD remains here as a resource, and should this transition period not be what was intended, please know that I am open to going back to the board and seeing if there are other solutions if this doesn't go as we all plan. But I think I certainly am so proud of the effort that the AQMD has done over the years, and I actually am here to introduce Wayne Nastry, who is our executive officer, and he will describe what the efforts entailed and what are the next steps are. Wayne?
Thank you, board member and Madam Vice Chair. This is actually, I think, her first official function as Vice Chair, so it's really exciting for us to be here. Madam Mayor and esteemed council, it's good to be before you. I know that it's been a while since I've seen many of you, but I think that although I may not have been here personally, certainly my staff has been here, and we have been well represented over the last 5 years. It's a long journey that we began many years ago, and I remember it well because it was the first time when I had come back as the executive officer, and I would say that this was probably the biggest challenge that we had for quite some time. And so let me just begin the presentation by doing a very brief overview, if you will, of what actually happened. So in 2016, toward the end of the year, we actually got notice of a high sample result. And it's important to sort of understand that as an organization of scientists and researchers that were very data-driven. And part of the challenge was that in our previous sampling efforts, the technology that we had used really wasn't showing us anything. Until one day we got a tremendously high hit of hexavalent chromium. And as you can imagine, we wanted to make sure that that sample was in fact verified and confirmed. And it was. And as of course it had to be, it was on a Friday afternoon, late in the day, and we had to make notifications. So we immediately notified the city, we notified the governor's office, because the values were so high, and hexavalent chromium is such a toxic risk in the community that we felt we had to take immediate action. So we began deploying a series of samplers throughout the region, trying to identify what the source of these hexachrome emissions were. And in that effort, you will see that we had conducted literally thousands of samples throughout that time. And in that time, we also identified what we believe to be the sources of the hexavalent chromium. And during that time, we were able to take specific action through our enforcement and compliance team. But that in of itself wasn't enough. And as many of you recall, we worked closely with LA County Fire Hazmat. We worked with your own enforcement code. We worked with various agencies throughout, because this truly was all hands on deck to try to identify what was going on in the community. And so with that, one of the things I think that we were most proud of is that we actually deployed a technology that no one else had been using, this portable sampling equipment. And that was allowed us to place samplers in areas that previously hadn't been sampled or been able to have been sampled before. And that gave us a clear picture. As a function of that, we were able to demonstrate, we were able to demonstrate exactly what really is necessary, and that is communication and outreach. So literally, we were having weekly updates with many of you, with many of your residents by phone and in Spanish. We had a significant number of town hall meetings where we came out, where we apprised the community of all the efforts that were going on. And we also very promptly displayed the information as we were actually obtaining that. This is really important to understand because nowhere else, and I can assure you that when I was regional administrator at US EPA, it would literally take months to get data posted. We were literally posting data within 24 hours of results. And that was because our team was working around the clock to validate that data and to really allow us to understand what was going on in that community. So these efforts truly were unprecedented. And what should I be pointing to? Here we go. Actions to date. So as I said, literally we conducted over thousands of samples in the community. Over 38 different sites, 10 different schools, over 700, nearly 800 multi-metal samplers. Again, extensive analysis that was ongoing. We conducted a number of qualitative results as well as analysis using various techniques on loose debris. We did extensive testing on equipment. And I think it's really important to understand that the knowledge, if you will, of metal treating expanded greatly during this operation. One of the big questions was, how is hexavalent chromium even being put out into the community? Because there was a thought that it would be reduced by time, heat, and all these other issues. So we were very surprised to find these sources. And one of the things that is most effective is that, yes, you can have enforcement, and yes, you can have compliance, but your rules have to be clear in terms of what is required. And the one thing that came out of this effort is that our rules had to be changed. And so when you look at what really came out of this, we had a number of rules that we developed as a direct result of what we learned through our efforts here in Paramount. And I'll talk about those a little bit later. So as I mentioned before, when we first began the sampling, the results were very high. And as you can see on this top chart on the left, the values look scary when you look at the chart. But in time, you can see that those values dropped very rapidly. And in large part, again, that was because of the rapid deployment of the sampling technology, the quick work of the enforcement team, and the true partnership that existed and still exists today between the city and all the various other agencies. In addition, we continued monitoring near the Kindred Hospital. And as you can see in the bottom chart, the toxic metals with long-term health effects that have been prioritized by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment were all within background levels. So as far as next steps, City Manager John Moreno is absolutely right. We have a partnership with the city. And that partnership is extended and committed to provide technical resources, to provide an understanding in terms of sampler location placement, any type of analysis that might be necessary with regards to how we can assist with the lab. So we intend to fully continue that partnership. The challenge that we have, frankly, is that in times of COVID, our resources have been impacted greatly. One of the things that happened last December was our lab itself. One of the few labs in the entire United States that's able to do the detection of hexchrome at the level that it is underwent a shutdown because of a COVID-19 case. We do have much more limited resources, so we're trying to make sure that we can focus on the federal requirements and the state requirements and still make sure that we're meeting our obligation to protect the residents and communities that we serve. So in this particular aspect that we're talking about, as the manager explained, the city manager John explained, we will intend to continue to be a resource. And so with that, I'm more than happy to answer any questions, but I did just want to highlight on the rules because the rules are extensive. We have rules 1469. We also have which focused on heated chrome tanks. 1469.1, which focuses on chrome spraying, 1407.1, which is chrome alloy metal treating, and then Rule 1430, which is metal grinding. So not only does Paramount benefit from all of the work that went into this, not only does Paramount benefit from the reduced risk that we've been able to accomplish through reducing the release of hexchrome into the environment, but in fact, the entire United States, because our rules really serve as the model for so many throughout the United States. And really, we couldn't have done that without the partnership, the strong partnership that we have with all of you. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to take any questions.
So, John, I know we have callers for this. Do we want to take the
Yeah.
callers first before we do discussion with council and questions for AQMD?
If that's your direction, Madam Mayor, we can do that.
Why don't we do that?
Okay. So we'll first, we do have, would you like the oral or emailed, Madam Mayor?
We can do
Either one?
oral since
Okay.
we're waiting on the phone, right?
Great. We have 4 oral and 2 emailed, so we'll start with the oral ones.
Hello,
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Jaime Lopez.
this is Jaime Lopez.
Hi, Mr. Lopez. We're calling regarding your request for public comment for item number 16 on the agenda this evening. You're being broadcast live to the City Council now, and your 3 minutes will begin.
Yeah, I wanted to say that the legitimacy of urban environmental justice research will rest on how initial problems are framed. I think we can all agree on that. If a problem is framed too narrowly, too broadly, or wrongly, the evidence gathering and solution generation may suffer from the same defects. So I want to advocate for an increased conversation regarding environmental justice in this community. I understand that just like 140 cities and counties throughout California, the city of Paramount is undergoing a process by which their environmental justice element as part of their general plan is being created for the first time. And I'd like to, in light of that, push for a more genuine participatory conversation where the community should play a more significant role in determining how we would like to have our air quality monitored and improved going forward. I understand that based on the presentation you just gave, Mr. Mastry, while I can appreciate the narrative of AQMD working around the clock, being highly concerned of our community, I was in attendance at an AQMD public meeting at Progress Park back in 2018, during which an AQMD representative fell asleep, and I have pictures to prove that. Another epidemiologist that was representing AQMD could not appear less sensitive to countless community members that went up to the microphone expressing concerns about cancer or other health risks. This is not to say that these companies in Paramount are directly responsible for each of those cancer cases that were addressed at that meeting. But that is to say that the narrative is a little bit too polished, in my opinion, and there is a lot more conversation to be had about this issue. I am concerned about the responsibilities being passed on to the city going forward, because as I see it today, there is no clear indication that that will be done in a very precise way. So these are just some initial thoughts. I'd be happy to talk with anybody who is listening right now going forward. Many of the members of the city and staff who are listening to me right now know how to get a hold of me. I demand a more participatory, more genuine conversation about environmental justice in Paramount. Enough is enough. Narrative cannot be too clean here or anywhere about this issue. And that is all I have to say for now. I yield the rest of my time.
Is she being heard on the
Can you hear me out there?
Well, the caller is off the line, but yes, they can still hear.
No, but can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes, okay.
your microphone's on.
Hello?
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Lisa Lappin.
Yes.
Good evening. We're calling regarding a request for public comment for item number 16 on this evening's agenda. You're being broadcast live to the City Council, and your 3 minutes will begin now.
Okay. Good evening. I would like to say that I am in opposition to Mr. Nastry's proposal to hand over testing responsibilities to the City of Paramount. I believe it is unacceptable for South Coast Air Quality Management District to renege on their duties of monitoring the air for excessive levels of chromium-6 and other toxic metals. No testing has been done since December 2nd, 2020. Mr. Nastri has decided to wash his hands of Paramount and hand over testing to the city. However, the city has told us on numerous occasions that a QMD scientists are the experts with this chemical, not the city. They, the AQMD, are the ones who are equipped to deal with this responsibility. The city is unequipped to deal with a responsibility of such magnitude because they are not scientists. If they do try to do the sampling themselves, it's quite likely the results could be compromised. If the city hires an outside agency to do it for them, it will incur expenses that a small, low-income community should not have to shoulder. Paramount taxpayers do not have money to pay to do AQMD's job, especially since AQMD receives millions of dollars yearly funding from polluters for licensing and permitting fees. The city does not receive this money. This is an unprecedented action on AQMD's part, just as the levels of chromium-6 discovered in 2016 to be 350 times above normal was considered unprecedented. An environmental lawyer from Communities for a Better Environment, whom I worked with in the early part of the last decade trying to discover what was causing this, said that, in her opinion, Paramount was the worst case of environmental injustice she had ever seen in her career. Is AQMD now going to compound this issue by abdicating their responsibility? What other city of 5 square miles has 5 multi-million-dollar forging companies working day and night right next to schools, homes, and parks, using huge amounts of chromium-6? This is critical. It is critical that AQMD keep a presence in Paramount, even if
Ms.
it's
Lappin, you have
no
20
doubt.
seconds left.
Sorry?
You have
What?
20 seconds left.
Because Monitor 23 averaged 0.60 nanograms per cubic meter in 2020, 8 to 10 times above the average for Southern California, and it is located just steps away from Gaines Elementary School. Mr. Nastri, please reconsider this unsound and unprecedented and unsafe option that you have proposed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Lappin. We have 2 more? 4? Okay.
Hello?
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Sonia De Leon.
This is Sonia De Leon.
Hello, Ms. De Leon. We're calling regarding your request for public comment for item number 16 on this evening's agenda. You're being broadcast live, and your 3 minutes will start now.
Hello. Good evening, council members. My name is Sonia De Leon, and I'm the Vice President of the Paramount Unified School Board. I'm also a teacher, a mother, and a daughter of a mother who was diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer to be more specific. I'm calling today because I'm worried about companies who work with toxic chemicals are in close proximity to our schools. Children are more sensitive to toxic chemicals, and they must be protected. Monitor 23 registered elevated levels of chromium-6 throughout 2020. These monitors help protect human life. They must be managed and funded for as long as the companies continue to work with cancer-causing chemicals. These companies are within 500 to 1,000 feet from our schools. I'm in favor of AQMD monitoring the air quality, and I'm not in favor of the city doing their own monitoring. So please, if we truly care for our students, our community, we know that the scientists could do their job. You leave scientists to do science work. You leave teaching to the teachers, and you leave, of course, monitoring to AQMD. So that's all I have to say. Hopefully, I can convince everyone that our children are most vulnerable and need to be protected at all costs.
Thank you.
Hello?
Good evening. This is the City of Paramount calling for Jose de Leon.
Yes.
Hello, we're calling regarding your request for public comment for item number 16 on this evening's agenda. You're being broadcast live to the City Council, and your 3 minutes will begin now.
Good evening, council members. My name is Jose de Leon, and I've been fighting against this issue. So it took us some time to get the AQMD around here to monitor our city, and I am against the decision that the city wants to take about being in charge of the monitor. This is a big issue, in addition to most of pandemic issues or different kind of issues that we have here in the city. But it's something that we need to take a decision. We have to take it serious. This is not just a simple issue. We know for a fact that a lot of people have been dying from cancer or people with respiratory problems. I understand the companies, they want to stay here, yeah, but the easy thing to do is they have to accomplish the monitors, but it has to be AQMD, not the city. How many science do we have in the city working? We don't have no science. You know, the city council, are they science? City council members? Ms. Lemon, are you a science? Why are you a science? All of you. I'm more than sure that you guys don't even read about the levels of monitors. We've been having this. This is not a new issue. AQMD barely found out in 2016. And at that point, we don't even know what the smell in the air. Even like half an hour ago, I just closed my shop. As soon as I close, I stay inside for like 5 minutes. When I get out, first thing I smell was metal. It has to be a way to monitor those companies, but not from the city. You guys in the past hired a scientist firm. They came down and they tried to persuade us. At the end, they just left. But no, we got to think about the new generations, the kids. We have a couple of schools run the companies.
So you only have 20 seconds left.
You have to take a decision based on the community input, not about yourself. We need actions. This is a serious problem. We are not inventing anything. It's a science.
Mr. De Leon, your time is now up.
Thank you. So we have two.
We have two written.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lewis?
Madam Mayor, there actually a third one came in, so we have a total of 3 written public comments. The first comment came via email and did not have a name, but the name associated with the email account is Allison Red. I'm speaking on behalf of a large group of concerned residents who all agree that the AQMD should not turn over any air monitoring activities to the City Council. We've come too far to let this system fail. The air monitors need to be operated by the professional scientists within the AQMD. The City Council members are not scientists, to which they have clearly stated. The AQMD needs to do their job. We understand that the costs are high, and the only logical solution is to hold the companies responsible to pay for their own monitoring. We feel if these companies were really doing their best to fix the issues within their own companies, they would have no problem paying for them. Second, This is a conflict of interest since members of the City Council have family and possibly friends that work for these companies, and other conflicts of interests that I won't specify, but I think common sense should account for that. It's not right for the AQMD to pass the buck, and it's going to cause outrage within the community, to which we will have to alert the media and other avenues of this irresponsible and irrehensible action. So please put the monitors back up, because we all know, and history has shown us, that if nobody is watching, then Weber Metals, Aerocraft, Anaplex, Press Forge, Carlton Forge, Matco, etc., will continue to operate at unsafe levels. Thank you. The next comment is anonymous. Good evening, City Council. I'd like to know why the City Council is not doing more to pressure AQMD to monitor our air quality. I say our air because we all breathe the same polluted air regardless of where we live in the city. How could the city tape off the playgrounds at parks but doesn't take the same precautions and action towards the air pollution? The time to sit and wait and see what happens to our health has passed. Stand up and act, or get out of the way at the next election. And the last public comment is from Sandra Enriquez. City team, I have been a Paramount resident for 18 years. I'm very concerned about the city considering self-regulating our air quality. For the most part, all regulatory activity related to air quality is executed by SCAQMD in the city of Paramount. SCAQMD issues and permits all activity that may result in air pollution, and the permitting process is designed to provide guidelines for the emission of pollution and seeks mitigation tools and processes that reduce pollution emissions. Paramount taxpayers should not have to pay for this. AQMD collects the money by way of permit fees. Why would we want to change this? Please do not allow this to happen. At the risk of our city becoming a polluted hot spot like in 2017 again. Let SCAQMD continue doing their job. It's their responsibility. Thank you. And that concludes the comments, Madam Mayor.
All right, so before we get into questions and discussion with council and the South Coast Air Quality Management District, I just want to say thank you, Vanessa, board member, for responding so quickly. I mean, I think I messaged you within like the next day you responded, and you're here today with Mr. Nastri to present to us. So as you can hear from the calls and the emails coming through, we have concern. And I know we're all up here concerned, and I think we won't make a decision tonight, that's definitely, but there's going to be a lot of discussion. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up to my council members to start with questions, and I will end with mine. So who would like to go first? Anybody?
I'll go if nobody else has any
That's
questions.
Councilor Randy, go ahead.
So, how are you?
Well,
Been a while since I've actually seen you in person.
Yes.
While I appreciate the efforts that AQMD has done in the last 4 going on 5 years, still a lot of work to be done. I also appreciate the work staff has done and the fact that you guys have been able to work together, but clearly it's not enough. Let me just comment on some of the things that you mentioned. Lessons learned. We learned a lot when we found out that we were living in 350 times the elevated levels of chromium-6. We learned a lot both from the city end and also through AQMD. But we learned a lot here in Paramount because no one else had those readings ever. And no one else that I know of has 4 foundries, a refinery, anodizing metal, and other metal companies in 4.5 square miles that Paramount has. So yeah, we learned a lot here, but there's a reason why we learned a lot. And there was a lot of cost associated with that. Not just money cost, but the cost of health. I get calls a lot with people asking about the class action lawsuit that occurred in reference to all the people that were getting ill and the class action lawsuit that occurred. But money doesn't make up for what these people have been through. They've been through a lot. So one of the main questions I have for you is, since the city of Paramount hosts so many facilities and that the AQMD permits, like I said, a refinery for foundries, plating operations, and other emitters of toxic chemicals, why is it now the responsibility of the city of Paramount to monitor these facilities for compliance? The AQMD pulled out during COVID, and the monitors were taken down, and we weren't getting the ones that remained up. You know, it was told to us that, we suffered a loss with workers as far as not being able to get to work. But you know what? There's a lot of essential workers, and I think this is very essential to make sure that our residents can have a peace of mind knowing that they're breathing clean air, or not even clean air, but normal background levels and not elevated levels. We pulled out during COVID. More people were home during COVID. I spoke with our city manager, who listened to what I had to say. So many people were calling in about odors that they never detected for. This is a working class community, so during the day, a lot of people aren't home. So they're not, smelling the same odors that others experience throughout the day, but during this time, they did experience different odors they had never talked about. And I know you can call 1-800-CUT-SMOG, but that in itself had a lot to be desired. And I've spoke about that before, and how it was a lot of wearing down of the community. So the bottom line is, I guess I want to know, how in good conscience do you now put the burden of monitoring these facilities on the city of Paramount? You heard all the callers call in, and, yeah, we're going to go out to an outside source. It's not about council members being scientists. But that's a cost on the city of Paramount. And you guys are the ones that allow these companies that are permitted to do business here. So you can't now just dump the responsibility onto the city of Paramount. Well, you can, because you are, but that doesn't make it right.
Well, let me just respond.
Let me finish. If the monitoring finds, if the city of Paramount puts back up their monitors and we hire a monitoring company, and lo and behold, we find that there's, exceedance of air pollution standards. It was so hard while AQMD was monitoring to get AQMD to respond. I can only imagine how difficult it will be when we have a private company monitoring, finding out the readings, trying to get AQMD to respond. You always said from the beginning in 2016-17 that at one point AQMD was going to pull out. This is what I'm going to say now. Now is not the time. Now is not the time, because the monitors aren't up. There's a lot going on. People are home. Levels are still spiked periodically, and that has to do with the way the monitoring was being calculated on averages. But when you live here in the city of Paramount, we're not so concerned about the averages. We're concerned about the daily numbers. And it's not fair, and I hate to use the word fair because I tell my kids fair is something you go to in the summer. So let me find a different word. It's not right that, you want to say that the averages are down, but those are averages, and we are living still in spikes. And so I understand there's going to become a point in time that you always said you were going to pull out. Doesn't make it right. And now is not the time. So I interrupted you when you were trying to speak before I was finished, but go ahead.
I apologize. I thought you were finished. Well, first off, let me just say there's a number of things that I think people perhaps misunderstand. And first off, when it comes to facilities and who operates in the city, that's not our decision. That is the city's decision. In fact, the city, as I recall, did a moratorium on expansion of new facilities and reassessed those facilities that were already in there. So I just want to be very clear that when it comes to land use, the South Coast AQMD has no authority on land use. And in fact, if a facility meets the requirements we are bound to require that they can go ahead and get their permits. So I just want that to be very clear. There's some question as to our role here. Our role hasn't changed. We still have our enforcement and compliance team. We're not asking the city to take on any enforcement or compliance responsibilities, nor would we ever contemplate delegating that type of authority to the city. And toward that regard, we have a very strong enforcement presence. And when our teams deploy, they deploy very quickly. The challenge that we have, as you so rightly note, Councilmember Guillen, is that by law, we have a requirement with regards to public nuisance. And there are a certain number of calls that we need to in order to qualify for a public nuisance. So I appreciate you bringing up the 1-800-CUT-SMOG, because that is so important that when people have odors or some other complaint, that we know about that so that we can actually hopefully qualify for a public nuisance, which allows us to utilize different authorities and perhaps one way issue NOVs to bring about action. The next thing I want to talk about is where companies are with regards to our rules. The companies, as I mentioned before, are subject to a number of rules that have been developed in response to our efforts. And they have to monitor a number of conditions, and they have to record those conditions. And those conditions are subject to enforcement action. And when it comes to toxics, we are very diligent in our inspection of those facilities. And I can assure you that if there are any type of violations, discrepancies, we will be all over that. Another aspect that I want to point out is that we actually develop and promulgate these rules so that companies are responsible for their actions. So when I hear that it's unprecedented that we're asking the community to do things or we're asking business to do things, let me just cite a few different examples. One of the things that we look at with regards to refineries, as a result of our Rule 1180, the refineries are now doing fence line monitoring. That data is posted online. We actually monitor that data. And so that's data that is being done, that's provided to the community outside of what we have done. When you look at what happened in Aliso Canyon, there have been a number of monitoring initiatives that have been developed by the gas company, by citizens groups. Those too are also being done, and we are also providing technical assistance. So we have a long history of going into facilities, making sure that the rules are appropriate, and where necessary, we will enhance and strengthen those rules. We still have a very strong enforcement compliance team. We are still going to be partners with the city and with all of the residents as it comes to this. So we're not abandoning the residents. This is not an unprecedented action. And the fact of the matter is, when we look at the sampling results over the last several years, you saw the tremendous drop. That's exactly what you want to see when we're taking action. However, even with that decline in concentration of some of those toxic metals, we're not going away. We are still in the community. So I want to assure you, if you're concerned about enforcement, that should not be a concern. If you're concerned about compliance, that should not be a concern. If you're concerned about the companies, if you have any concerns, let us know those concerns, and we will make sure that we'll let you know what's going on from an enforcement and compliance perspective. From a rulemaking perspective, we are still continuing to do rules on chrome-related activities. And in fact, we have one that'll be coming up, I want to say, this month or next month. So we're not going to abate on that. And then to the point about other areas, as I said before, are looking at the rules that have been developed in direct response here and looking at developing statewide measures. So we know that CARB is looking at certain measures, and we're continuing to work with a number of air agencies across not only the state, but throughout the United States. So I just want to assure you, when we said we would be here as a resource, as a technical resource, we mean that. And I think in working with John and John with regards to the things that we've done, we have a proven history of doing so. And we have a proven history of coming back to this community whenever we've been asked. So there are a number of things that we're looking at that I would say would hopefully address the community's concerns. We just completed our multiple air toxic exposure study. That's called our MATES 5 study. That's going to be coming out. And one of the things that I take,
Mr. Nestor, can you repeat that? You just completed what?
it's called our MATES 5 study, our multiple air toxics exposure study. And that actually looks at what are toxics throughout the entire region. We do this study every, I want to say 5 to 7 years. We just came out with a draft. But one of the things that we found is that there's been almost a 50% reduction in toxic risk since the last study. That's a tremendous success when we look at our air quality and we look at the public's exposure. It's not enough. We want to continue to drive that, and there are things that we know that need to be done that we're going to continue to do. And that's really focusing on reducing air emissions so that this area comes into attainment. I hate to say this, but the fact of the matter is we do suffer from the worst air quality in the nation. But we're making tremendous strides to get there, and I want to assure you that we will continue to be a partner as we move forward.
I just like to add, we just want more attention here in Paramount. I'm glad that you're going to be a resource. The timing is what's off, and that's what I mentioned. Your presentation is beautiful, but when you talk about fence line and all the things that you guys have done, fence line monitoring, that didn't occur here in Paramount. And also when we talk about companies doing self-monitoring, you're glossing over, it's a beautiful presentation, but you're glossing over a lot of it, Mr. Nastri. What was the big argument about the self-monitoring? The self-monitoring was they would have to and what that was, 1469, I went to those. And all those meetings that I attended, all the owners, all the people in that business, they didn't want to do self-monitoring. They pushed back. And now to actually get them to self-monitor, there's a lot of things that have to happen first. And you're aware of that, and I'm not going to get into all the things of the meeting, but you make it sound like it's really great. And I do appreciate look at all the work we've accomplished together, right? We've done a lot. I'm not saying that we haven't. I just think Paramount still needs your devoted attention. I don't want you to pull out at this point. I want the monitors up. I know at some point we can revisit this, but it's a nice presentation, but you're glossing over a lot of the specifics. And unless you attend those meetings, and I'm not going to argue with you, but you know exactly what I'm talking about. We have a lot more work to do before you pull out.
May I, Madam Mayor?
You absolutely, go ahead.
I think that I just would like to ask kind of some specific questions, and I know specifics are difficult, but my understanding of a few things, so correct me on any of them if I'm wrong, is like you're saying, you're going to continue to be a resource here. We do have the monitors that we've already purchased. Our issue was that we had originally asked for the AQMD to do those readings, and then the information came back to us that you really didn't have the manpower to do that we would need to contract that out. Is that correct so far?
Yes.
Okay. Second part of that question is, I remember when we were doing some simultaneous readings on some different venues, and because some questions came back where the materials, the readings were sent to the same lab. So AQMD does the actual physical testing, or they collect the filters and send them to a lab?
So we actually do the analysis. We do the collection as well. It just depends. When I say we do the collection, there are times where samples are submitted to us, so long as they're done appropriately through an appropriate chain of custody and the like, so that we're assured that the integrity of the samples was maintained from the point of collection. Those are all things.
Do you not use, so you don't use an outside lab to do an analysis on the metals in the filters that you pull?
We do that in-house.
You do that in-house. So is the manpower issue then the collecting of the filter or doing the actual analysis?
It's a combination of both.
It's a combination of both. Okay. Have you had occasion to, because of workload or whatever, to use outside labs for analysis? I guess what I'm looking for is, if we have to move in that direction, if we find that, there isn't a resolution here with the AQMD, which is what I'm hearing from you. I don't know what's going to happen at the board level, and it may be our wish, but let's say that doesn't happen. What is your confidence level in that?
So let me make sure I understand what you're asking of me.
What I'm specifically asking is if the AQMD is not going to collect the filters and do the analysis, and the city has to end up taking responsibility to hire a subcontractor to do that, what is your confidence level in us being able to do that? Are there competent labs out there that can do what the AQMD does, or do you consider yourself unique in the ability to do this?
Well, of course, I consider ourselves unique, but with regards to sample collection and analysis, I could tell you that we have a high confidence with certain vendors, right? That's part of the sharing or the consultative process that we envision is in terms of.
Exactly, and that's what I was going to say. You would certainly help us with that if we have to move in that direction.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we would even be willing, to look at the data if there's any questions, like for instance, if there's a spurious number, if the results somehow seem questionable, we would be more than happy to look at that data. So as I said before, we're not going to simply walk away and act as if we've never been here. We're going to continue that.
Yeah, and I know, we have recently formed a sustainability committee through the council. I know for myself, I probably have 100 questions for you in that regard about type of filters and placement and monitors and all that type of thing, but I don't think that's necessarily the role that we're at right now. We have to determine if we're going to do that. Would you say that there is any room for discussion with the AQMD to stay here, or you're saying with the levels that you're at and with the job that we have to do, we have to move on? You need to move your discussions to how we can best serve as your consultant. I want to know, where do we put all of our energies and time and effort into? Should it be in lobbying more to the AQMD, or should it be in us reaching out to other resources? Do you even have that capability is what I'm asking, if direction was given, because the feedback that we get is that there are high demands in other areas for you right now. Your resources are stretched thin. You need to move on where there are significant problems, just like the city of Paramount had, that you need to move on to. So tell me.
It's definitely the latter. Part of the challenge that we have is that we have to do a significant number of source testing. And source testing requires very trained personnel to go in, to assess the equipment, to look at where the exhausts are coming from, to understand what the normal operating parameters are, because we don't want somebody to basically try to game the system when we're doing source testing. So it's very intensive, and the source testing load has increased significantly. And so it's a zero-sum game. I only have so many people that can do so much. In this particular case, we want to make sure that we have the resources focused in those areas where there's a high need, where there's a high concern, where we don't necessarily have the confidence of having been involved as extensively as we have been for the last several years. And it's where we still will maintain a relationship to work on the identification of vendors, to work on the sampling methodology, to work on the QA/QP program, to work on the actual data analysis. That's something that we're still committed.
And to reinforce our commitment, I mean, we have always said from the beginning, I know this is some new members of the council, but I don't know if anybody feels different, but I know that our vision and our plan has always been that even when the AQMD left, the city is invested in keeping monitors here and continuing to monitor. And that's not an inexpensive prospect. The number that got thrown around to me is about $100,000 a year. So regardless of which way this goes, there's a commitment to the community to continue monitoring. Along that line, you had talked about, businesses and fence line monitoring and all of those types of things. Do you have any examples currently of communities where there's some kind of ordinance or business tax or whatever related to air monitoring that exists already, or are we going to have to be new forging ground for that also?
Councilmember, I'm not aware of a specific community, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't already exist. So I would just say, let me get back to you and the members of the council on that?
I think somewhere in Orange County.
Yeah,
they
because
do.
I believe, excuse me, I believe that regardless that commitment is there, and I think that if there, is a way to do that, to get the business community, to take the responsibility for that expense, I think it's something we're certainly ready to entertain and willing to do. But in the conversations that I had been told that there may be several legal ramifications to that, such as one of the things that was thrown out was AQMD may be the only entity that has the legal right to tax for those type of environmental issues. So we certainly want to do that if we can, and not pass it, take that money from our community in another way. But regardless of however that goes, the commitment is there, that we want to see this ongoing. So we certainly are going to depend heavily upon your expertise and how to move forward and make sure that we keep this community moving forward and don't take any steps backwards. And for now, that's all the questions I have. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. So I want to just throw 3 words out there for me. It's when I think about this, I think about responsibility, liability, and cost. Yes, we're not scientists. Absolutely, we're not. But the thing of it is within a city staff, I mean, we count on you guys as the experts to help us with this. And I did hear about, how you're mentioning that you're going to be here as a resource. But my thought is, too, when I first came into this meeting, is like, what were your reasons for no longer wanting to be here? So I looked at your report and noticed that, yes, the numbers are down. But I also noticed that we haven't had monitorings done within the last 6 months. So today, truly, we don't know where our readings are at, right? So, maybe, again, I know we're not going to make a decision tonight. There's more discussion. I know about reaching out to our counter, Rex Richardson, which is our board member. So I think, John, I think we can go on here all night and have this discussion. I think the best, if there's no more other comments, what we'll do is we will schedule a follow-up meeting, because I said I have a list of questions here that I think, like I said, that needs to be addressed. If we could set up that second meeting with our Sustainability Committee with AQMD and figure out what our next steps will be. Did you want to say something, Councilman?
I just wanted to clarify about the permitting. We give business permits, you're correct, our city staff. But you, AQMD, does the permitting to run the equipment inside these businesses.
That's correct.
So I didn't want you to wash me out and just say, oh no, you guys give the permit. That's a business permit. But in order to run these facilities, AQMD is providing those permits to operate. I just wanted to clarify that.
If I might, I do want to thank Wayne for all the work that has gotten us to this point, but I hear you loud and clear that this is the start of a conversation. I'm going to leave my cards with your city clerk, and they have my cell phone. So you have my commitment that we will continue the dialogue, and this is just the beginning. And I know that Wayne is going to offer all the support that we can, and if it's a new rule or what we have to do to figure out how this cost is absorbed, we will do that. You know where to find me.
Thank you, Board Member. We appreciate you. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nastri.
Thank you.
So then we'll ask these questions later on. We have questions, we'll ask them later on. Okay.
Yeah, we have a lot. Absolutely. There's more discussion to come on this. All right, so we're going to continue on with our new business. Item number 11, Public Hearing Ordinance 1150, introduction.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. In March, the City Council provided to us specific direction on new updated regulations for home gardens in our residential zones. This item, before you tonight, if approved, is the first step in formalizing these new home garden rules. The Planning Commission recommended approval of this ordinance at their last meeting, and our Assistant Director of Planning, Mr. John King, will walk you through the item. John?
Thank you. Thank you, John, and dealing with this, sorry. Mayor Olmos and council members. So we got a lot of feedback from you, some excellent feedback on home gardens, and we're bringing it home, really. We incorporated them into an actual ordinance, into draft form, and we'll go through it here. And again, it's to amend regulations for home gardens, which are already on the books, to extend those, to expand and apply them to all residential zones, and legal and non-conforming residential properties in commercial and manufacturing areas. So just a little recap again, it's this ordinance, the home gardening ordinance was approved by you, the City Council, in 2019 with that provision for a one-year report, which we did. We brought it back for you to look into some other opportunities, other zones, and other extensions. So December of last year and March, it was a great discussion, got some important feedback. More importantly, we listened and deleted some things and made sure we got it right. Here's the time frame. So this is where we are. You can see we took our time really. December and March we listened to you, and then last month we took draft ordinance to the Planning Commission, get their input, and they agreed with you. They agreed with your feedback and forwarded it on to you this evening. And if adopted, if you're okay with this draft ordinance, then it will come back to you next month for adoption, and then take effect 30 days like most ordinances. Gardening, again, this is something that's very important to the Paramount community, and we talked about this evening. It's a special meeting. We'll be introducing a sustainability section to the agenda. And this really fits right in. We pondered including this item in the sustainability agenda because really this is where does sustainability start? More importantly, at home. So this is home sustainability. But as an ordinance, we brought it forward to the top of the meeting. In 2019, what you approved was to have expand some opportunities. Well, in the R1 zone, which is the single-family areas, the parts of town where typically it's one house per property. You did not want to see, at the time, vegetable gardens or edible gardens in that area. But you did allow them in the R2 and RM zones, which is most of the residential areas in Paramount. You had some restrictions on height. You had some provisions on maintenance. And you restricted them to 24 square feet, which is the purple example box in this slide. And here we are, based on what you let us know the last few months with our recommendations. This is just a little summary. So where the left side is what's in the code now, the right side is what we're proposing. So greenhouses, we're extending that definition. You remember hoop houses, we call it like a cousin to a greenhouse. But you made it clear that we would have to include provisions about design, so they're not too flimsy or just follow in wind, and maintenance. Want to make sure that they're kept maintained. Again, it's now vegetable gardens are okay in the front yards of the R2 and RM zones. So this recommendation is to expand to the R1 zones, which is the single-family areas, but with a permit, with a no-fee permit, and with confirmation that there's limited or no rear yard space to have a garden. So there's no room in the back, let's put it in the front. And then also the PDPS zones, planned development with performance standards. Those are more compact housing areas. We talked about like the area behind Home Depot recently completed, KB homes, the Coppin Broad homes on Somerset, and the other KB homes on near the 105 freeway. We're proposing expanding from 24 square feet to 50 square feet, and including some information on composting. So there's a hoop house, and we included some language. It reads, a greenhouse or hoop house shall be of sturdy construction and maintained in quality condition. The criteria utilizing and evaluating the condition of a greenhouse or hoop house shall include, but not be limited to, torn, stained, dirty, and or faded material. And that's similar language in the code for other objects or other structures in residential areas. And colorful map. This is Paramount, and it's color coded by these zones. So we circled here the residential areas, and it's kind of that family of yellow, orange, and pink. So the new areas are the R1, single-family residential. That's the yellow. You'll see a lot of yellow. There happens to be a lot of single-family residential areas in Paramount. in the city, and those are the areas that would require that the permit. So if somebody came into City Hall with this idea and complete an application, which will load up on the city website, a city planner will head out, do a little field trip, and take a look and approve it if it meets the criteria. And then the expansion. The expansion is the 24 square feet to the 50 square feet. Composting, so again, encouraging garden compost with storage requirements. We want to control odor, visibility, infestation, and this kind of ties into a forthcoming presentation this evening on organic waste. So it kind of all ties together. Trust me, and that's really it. If you have any questions, I'm here.
Okay. Not sure if we have questions, but I know this is a public hearing. So I will go ahead and open up the public hearing. At this time, we'll hear testimony in the following order. Are there any testimonies in favor?
No, ma'am.
Are there any in opposed?
No, ma'am.
Can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So move. Lemons.
So I have a motion by Lemons, second by
Me.
Cuellar Stallings. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cuellar Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. I will go ahead and entertain a motion for this item.
I'll move the item.
Second.
Lemons.
So I have a first by Lemons and a second by Aguayo to read by title only, waive further reading, introduce ordinance number 1150, and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cuellar Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. Thank you. All right, move on to item number 12, another public hearing, ordinance 1151.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, sticking with the Planning Department, this next item would establish revised regulations for what are called accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, and it would also add new regulations for what's called junior ADUs. In their ever-going effort to improve the housing supply statewide, the state of California requires cities to approve ADUs and JADUs administratively, or what's called over-the-counter. This simply means that cities are not allowed to require that property owners go before the Planning Commission and or the City Council to get approval from ADUs and JADUs. That era's gone. However, cities are allowed to adopt limited regulations governing these ADUs and JADUs. Unfortunately, though, the state doesn't allow us to adopt parking regulations associated with ADUs and junior ADUs. So, and I know that's a big concern for our community is parking. In any case, what we have before you are regulations that we would like to impose as the basic rules that residents must meet when adding an ADU or junior ADU on their property. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Planning Director, Mr. John Carver, who will walk you through the item. John?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and council members, this item is a zoning ordinance text amendment to establish updated regulations for accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, and adding regulations for junior accessory dwelling units, or JADUs. The Planning Commission recommended approval to the City Council of this ordinance at its April 13th, 2021 meeting. So an ADU is a complete independent living unit for one or more persons. ADUs can be attached to a house or detached from a house. An ADU can also be created by converting existing space. For example, an attached garage or a storage unit could be converted into an ADU. A junior ADU must be established within the existing footprint of a single-family home. Here's a look at two garage conversions that have been converted into ADUs at existing single-family residences. ADU laws have been revised by the state in an attempt to provide more affordable housing. Effective in January, ADU approval must be streamlined. Capacity was expanded to allow junior ADUs, and finally, local ordinances must be consistent with state law. Looking at junior ADUs, they are allowed within existing single-family homes. And a junior ADU can contain no more than 500 square feet. Private bathrooms are optional, and all these requirements are mandated by state law. ADUs are permitted in all residential zones and mixed-use zones that contain residential. In a single-family residential zone, one ADU is permitted, and a junior ADU is also permitted. And in a multiple-family residential zone, 2 detached ADUs are permitted. State law requires that an ADU be approved administratively, as John mentioned, within 60 days of submittal. ADUs and junior ADUs do not have to have separate utility connections. We are still allowed to enforce building code, so we will continue to do that. Other provisions of state law prohibit a minimum lot size for an ADU. ADUs can contain up to 1,000 square feet in a single-family residential zone and up to 800 square feet in a multiple-family residential zone. An ADU can have a maximum of 16 feet in height and must observe 4-foot side and rear yard setbacks. Covered on-site parking that is lost to an ADU is not required to be replaced, and this is mandated by state law. And looking at our upcoming RENA allocation, ADUs and junior ADUs will probably help to satisfy a significant amount of housing that will be required under the RENA number. And we're recommending that you introduce Ordinance 1151, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions?
I have one question, Madam Mayor.
Absolutely.
No minimum on lot size, is that part of the state, looking at the wrong direction?
That's correct.
The state
That's right.
rule or our ordinance?
That's our ordinance.
Do we have?
No, I'm sorry. That's the state law. You cannot.
Okay, so
you cannot
statewide,
have a
you
minimum.
can't put a minimum.
That's right.
Correct?
That's correct.
Okay, because that was just my main concern there. Okay.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment. John, I think we had talked about the question about, I think this ordinance was going to pass first before we did like an education to the residents about ADUs. This is, okay.
Yeah, that is correct, Madam Mayor. We are going to do an educational video on this.
Perfect.
Once
Thank
the
you.
council passes the ordinance next month.
Perfect, thank you. There's no more questions, no?
No.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and, since this is a public hearing, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing. Do we have any testimony? Those in favor?
No, ma'am.
Any opposed?
No.
All right,
I
can
move we close public hearing. Lemons.
I get a second?
Second, Aguayo.
All right, so we have a first by Lemons, a second by Aguayo to close the public hearing. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. Can I get a motion, please?
So move.
Second, Lemons.
Okay, so I have a moved by Claire Stallings, second by Lemons to read by title only, waive further reading, introduce ordinance number 1151 and place it on the next regular agenda for adoption. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. All right, moving on to item number 13, our third public hearing for tonight.
Yes, indeed, Madam Mayor. Community development block grant funds and home investment funds are actually federal funding that cities receive for various operations and projects. The use and purpose of these funds can really vary from city to city. Paramount has been pretty consistent in our use of these funds, and the use definitely echoes the policy direction that has been set by the council. The federal government requires that cities adopt a plan for the use of these funds every year. So that's what we're going to do tonight, and Karina Lamb will handle this item, our finance director. Karina?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the council, the item before you is a public hearing for the one-year action plan for next fiscal year that begins on July 1st, 2021. So every 5 years, we do a consolidated plan. The plan outlines the goals and objectives that we want to set by using these federal CDBG and home funds. And then every year, we do an action plan that specifies the activities to meet the goals and objectives that's set in a consolidated plan. Just to give you a little background, this next fiscal year marks our 25th year as a city to receive money directly from HUD, and we call ourselves an entitlement city. This is a pretty significant grant. Year after year, we receive approximately $1 million total in CDBG and home funds combined. Past CDBG allocation, we have used it for co-enforcement activities, graffiti removal, commercial rehab programs, and fair housing activities. Also, past home allocations have funded home improvements for affordable housing. We are recommending we use the funding for same activities next year. To receive the grants, we have to publish a notice, and that was done on April 2nd on Press Telegram, and that we also need to hold a public hearing to seek public input for this one-year action plan, which we are doing that tonight. With that, we're recommending the council to conduct a public hearing and receive citizens' comment and adopt next fiscal year's one-year action plan. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Karina. Any questions or comments from council? Hearing none. All right, we'll go ahead and open up the public hearing. Do we have any testimony for those in favor?
No testimony in favor, Madam Mayor.
Any for those opposed?
And none opposed either.
All right, can I get a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved, Lemons. Second, Lemons.
So I have a motion by Quare Stallings, second by Lemons. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. I'll entertain a motion for the order.
So moved, Lemons. Second, Quayle, Stallings.
All right, so I have a motion by Lemons, second by Quare Stallings to adopt the one-year action plan, fiscal year 2021 to 2022, authorize the city manager or his designee to execute and submit all required certifications and related documents and agreements to implement the one-year action plan, fiscal year 2021 to 2022, in compliance with HUD regulations.
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. All right, we've completed our public hearings for the evening. We will move on to resolution number 21013.
Yes, Madam Mayor, our Public Works Director, Ms. Adriana Figueroa, will handle the next two items. Ms. Figueroa?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, in 2019, we submitted a grant application to the California Transportation Commission, or the CTC, for the development of a local roadway safety plan, also known as the LRSP. The LRSP creates a framework to identify and analyze roadway safety issues and recommend needed improvements. It focuses on evaluating the city's entire roadway network using a defined set of criteria to identify and prioritize safety projects in order for us to submit for future highway safety improvement program grant funding consideration. I'm happy to report that our LRSP grant application was approved, and the anticipated cost to prepare this document is roughly $80,000. This grant would cover $72,000. The local match would be covered by either Measure R, Measure M, or Prop C. Attached are the required agreements under this program, and resolution number 21013 is the formal authorization by the city that is needed and required to execute these agreements. Once these agreements are executed, we will be able to begin the development of the LRSP. So with that, it is recommended that the City Council read by title only and adopt resolution number 21013. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Adriana. Do we have any comments, questions, or discussions from council? Hearing none, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion, please.
So moved. Second, Quayle, Stallings.
All right, so we have a motion by Lemons, second by Quare Stallings. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. Great. Moving on to item number 15, approval.
Yes, Ms. Figueroa?
Thank you, John.
You-
Madam Mayor, members of the City Council, in early 2019, the City of Paramount received funding from the Federal Highway Bridge Program for the design phase of the rehabilitation of the Rosecrans Avenue bridges. There are two bridges, one that runs east and the other one that runs west. That's how they are considered. That program provides for 88.3% of the cost in federal dollars, and 11.7% is required as a local match. Local match can come from any sources other than federal. We have been successful in leveraging Metro Measure R funding that will count towards that 11.7% local match. On June 25th of last year, the Metro Board programmed $800,000 in Measure R funds to the City of Paramount for the completion of the design phase of the project. This requires a funding agreement that must be executed by the city for the acceptance of the funds. The city attorney has reviewed and approved this agreement as to form. With that, it is recommended that the City Council approve the Measure R funding agreement with the Metro for the Rosecrans Avenue Bridge retrofit project and authorize the mayor or her designee to execute the agreement. That concludes my report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions the council may have.
Thank you again, Adriana. Do we have any questions, comments, discussions from council on this one? Hearing none, okay, I'll go ahead and entertain a motion, please.
So moved, Councilmember Aguayo.
Second, Lemons.
Okay, we have a motion by Aguayo, second by Lemons. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. All right, we're going to be moving on to our subsequent need item.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you very much, and thank you to the council for adding this item on the agenda tonight. I appreciate that. As I mentioned earlier, this item is a request to provide funding for a reward program for Paramount High School and college students who have received their vaccine. If the council approves this tonight, we can get right to work on developing the informational campaign, and our hope is that the program will gain some interest in the vaccination of our school kids before some of them go back to summer session in June, and then, of course, when they return for the fall sessions. So with that, I'll turn it over to our Community Services and Recreation Director, Mr. David Johnson, who will explain the program.
Thank you, John. Mayor and council members. As you all are probably aware, we had a lot of initial success in helping our older population attain the COVID vaccine, and we now have over 75% of our senior population vaccinated. Our younger generation, for any number of reasons, are less inclined toward getting vaccinated. National polling puts about 25% of the 18 to 34-year-old population as unwilling to get the vaccine, and another 25% that are choosing to wait until some later time. In LA County, the numbers are even more telling. Only 15.8% of 16 to 29-year-olds in the county have received the vaccine. Our Paramount students, 16 years and older, are eligible for the vaccine, and some of them will be returning to school this summer and then returning to school in the fall for in-person instruction. Our college students will be returning in the fall as well, and it appears that they will need to show proof of the vaccine for them to be allowed to return for in-person instruction. We reached out to our youth commission for input on the idea of offering a gift card as a reward to their age group to motivate them to get the vaccine. The majority of the youth commission said they liked the idea and indicated that they would participate if offered. So tonight we're proposing that any Paramount resident 16 years or older that will be attending high school or college receive a $10 gift card as a reward for getting the vaccine. We also asked the Youth Commission about the amount of the gift card, and they were supportive of the amount. Students would simply have to come to the City Hall or to the city yard to pick up their gift card with proof of at least getting the first vaccine shot and proof of school attendance in the form of their student ID and residency in the case of college students. At $10 a card and an estimated 500 potential students that might participate in this program, we are requesting $5,000 to be included in the final FY21 budget to provide the gift cards for this reward program. Gift cards would be purchased in small batches as needed, so any funds not used by the end of June 30th, 2021 would remain unspent budgeted funds. Our recommendation tonight is that the City Council consider and approve the use of general funds in an amount not to exceed $5,000 for the purchase of gift cards as a reward program for Paramount residents attending high school or college that receive a COVID-19 vaccine. That concludes my oral presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Do we have any questions or comments from council?
I have a question.
Sure. Vice
David,
Mayor?
what happens to the students that don't have a birthday until the summer or the fall? And then will they qualify for this gift card, sir?
If it's at the council's discretion, once we get into a new budget cycle, we could certainly extend the program, but this is for this budget cycle and would end June 30th.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
How come we're limiting it to kids attending high school or college? Why isn't it just anybody? Did you say 15 or 16 or older? I didn't hear.
It's 16 years old and up.
I mean, what if somebody's just going to go to work? Who cares? The point is to get them vaccinated if they live in the city of Paramount.
Well, our thought is, again, as students return to high school, you're entering an environment in which has a lot of exposure to outside groups, outside families, outside members, and so your exposure.
Suppose a kid that's working at the drive-thru at Jack in the Box who sees 1,000 different people a day. I mean, not everybody. I mean, there are 16-year-olds who won't return to school. There are people who graduate at that age who just drop out and have to go to work. I just personally don't think we should limit it. I think anybody who's in that age group who's willing to get vaccinated and take advantage of it, it's the overall benefit to our community. I just think it should be opened up. I wouldn't limit it to somebody having to be in school or college.
And that would be at the discretion of the council.
That's my take on it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because I mean, if you go college and then you have to talk about trade school, you'd have to add all those features as well. I would.
We would include those.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think we should open it up. I think that's a great idea.
Just anybody 16 and over who we can get vaccinated, let's get them vaccinated.
Dave, did you say first shot only? Is that what I heard you say? That shows.
Yeah, I mean, we would just want to see proof that they got the first shot at least,
Why not the second?
just for expediency to move it along quicker.
Just a what? I didn't hear.
That was actually
to get the program along faster. But the thing of it is, if they're not injected twice, it defeats the purpose, right?
Well, there is obviously we've heard from the scientists that there is a level of protection by just getting the first dose. Yes.
They do say that. They say it's about 70%, but they don't know about the longevity of it. But I don't see how offering it for both shots delays the expediency.
Well, again, because I was looking at this as a program that would end on June 30th, I didn't want a problem where a student or any eligible member gets that shot middle of June and they wouldn't get their shot until after June 30th. So that's why I was going with the first shot.
Well, can't you make it within the time frame, like when you end it for that period of time after? And why is the reason for the date range anyway? For the budget cycle?
It's part of the budget cycle. These funds are being
do we
allocated
not have
in this
discretion
fiscal
for
year.
more money if we want to spend it?
It's up to the council, absolutely.
I mean,
we
I don't
could,
think there's
put
anything more
it-
urgent right
we
now
could-
than getting these people safe.
Sure. We could add it to, as we're preparing the FY22 budget, FY2020, the 21-22 budget, we could definitely put funds in there because, as Mr. Johnson said, there's only less than 2 months left of the fiscal year, and we don't know how popular this program is going to be, but it's now that we're opening it up to the general population, not just students, it sounds like, it might go quick. We just never know, so.
Right, but I would like to see that there's enough funds there for them to get both. I mean, I know one of the problems they're saying nationally is that people are getting the first shot, not going back for the second.
Sure.
So I think we need that incentive to carry over.
Okay, we
So
will
however you
put
have
it-
to work it, that's what I'm
I
in
agree.
favor of.
I would say the second.
We'll put it in the proposed budget as well.
Perfect.
So
I think we have to actually,
Go ahead, Jeff. Dave.
go ahead.
I have a question for clarity. So for 16 is obviously the base age in which you're qualifying for this. What is the maximum age?
You said 30, but you said all ages. That's what your recommendation was.
Well,
but
my thing was to not limit it to the 16-year-olds that are just going to high school and college is what I said.
Right.
You know, that I don't care where they're going, but whatever your original top out was, I think
was
it depends
34.
upon the data that we have about the group that's not getting them.
Yeah, that was ages 16 to 29.
Yeah, 16 to 29 was what LA County identified as having only 16%
And that's
getting
what,
the vaccine.
what I thought the target was. So they identified that that's the group that's not going to 16 to 29. My thing about opening it up was don't limit it to the 16 and above that are just going to school or college.
Correct.
If they fall in that age range, give them
Right.
the incentive.
So same age range, Dave, doesn't change.
So
16 to 20.
10 to 29.
29.
Okay.
That's what you, yeah.
Yeah, you just don't have that caveat of you have to go to school or college.
Sure.
And then I would move the item with that, and then however the discussion went for the funding source to be available for both shots. Is that clear enough, Mr.
Yeah,
That's kind of iffy, I know.
Would it be better to say to be fully vaccinated because let's say they get the Johnson & Johnson shot,
Yes.
that's only one, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So we don't want to
So we want the
confuse them.
incentive program to go through fully
Fully
vaccinated.
vaccinated, yes.
The money to be available to
Yes.
fully vaccinate that demographic that we're opening it up to, which is 16 to 29-year-olds with no caveat that they have to go to school.
That
Clear
was the
enough?
motion.
So that's
That
the
would
motion.
be, that would
Was the
satisfy
motion.
the public purpose, yes.
Yes.
So moved.
Can I get a second on that, please?
Second.
I heard two. Was it
Go ahead. I did over here.
Aguayo?
Yeah.
So we got a motion by Lemon, second by Aguayo. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo,
Yes.
Councilmember Guillen,
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cuero Stallings,
Yes.
Mayor Olmos.
Yes. Great program, you guys. All right, we're moving on to our environmental sustainability, which is a new business. Actually, this is actually a new part of our agenda that we're bringing for the first time tonight. I think I just wanted to share on behalf of the council, we're excited to bring this part of the agenda and have some great conversation on some topics that we feel that we need to have discussion on of how to move forward with some of our environmental sustainability within the city. So excited to have this on our agenda. We'll move on over to item number 17, which is oral report from the League of California Cities presenting on impacts of Senate Bill 1383, organic waste.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. As you mentioned, moving over to our brand new section of the agenda, that's the environmental sustainability. Our first topic for this is, well, we did have our first topic, actually, the air quality and monitoring. Now we're moving over to organic waste. Senate Bill 1383 is a relatively new law that actually aims to divert the amount of organic waste throughout the state before it hits the landfills. However, I want to caution you, this law will have gigantic impacts on municipalities and, for that matter, the ratepayers. This is particularly concerning as our residents have typically paid some of the lowest refuse rates in our region. So with us on Zoom to go over this is a guest speaker from the League of California Cities, Ms. Christine Guerrero. Christine?
All right. Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. It's good to see you all. Even if it's only via Zoom, I can't wait to see you all in person. I'm here today to talk about the regulatory measures set forth in SB 1383, California's short-lived climate pollutant regulations. Next slide, please. This law was passed in 2016 and signed by then Governor Brown to require the state to reduce organic waste disposal by 75% by 2025. That's about 20 million tons annually. And it's a very ambitious proposal. It also requires the state to increase edible food recovery by 20% by 2025. We'll go into that a little bit more. The purpose of this bill is very laudable. It is to reduce methane gas emissions that come from organic waste, to reduce that from going to landfills, which contribute to climate change. And we've all seen the effects of climate change related to droughts, warmer temperatures, wildfires, and coastal erosion. So we know that this is a very important task that we must all embark on. And the law also gives CalRecycle the regulatory authority to achieve these targets through regulation and enforcement. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned before, we can agree as cities that we have to help reduce the effects of climate change. And I know that the city of Paramount has been at the forefront of this effort. You've been recognized for your sustainability measures with as a platinum awardee of the Beacon program. We know that you're really committed to these types of causes of sustainability. However, there are significant challenges in meeting the requirements in 1383. As I mentioned, the regulations were adopted a couple of years ago in 2017. However, it has taken CalRecycle, the regulatory agency, a whole 3 years to finalize those regulations. They were not adopted until November of 2020. So we are in May. Those were adopted just 6 months ago. And those are really the rules that tell us how CalRecycle has interpreted 1383 and how cities and counties are going to be required to abide by the regulations. It's a lot to take in this complex law, not a lot of time for cities to implement it. There are significant challenges in meeting also the funding requirements. So cities are required to be compliant by January 1st, 2022. So that's about 13 months to meet all the requirements that we'll go through. So 13 months to get a whole complex program for organics, for food disposal, and to educate the public, and then also find the funding to implement the program. And by 2024, cities will be required to take action against non-compliant entities. This includes residents and businesses, and we'll go into that. Next slide, please. So what do you have to do, and what does a city have to do under SB 1383? Cities are going to need to set up an ordinance package, conduct massive education programs, establish an edible food waste recovery system, site, permit, build, or pay for new organic waste infrastructure. This includes compost facilities or anaerobic digesters, and establish a new system to collect, sort, and divert the organic waste from going into a landfill and ensure compliance from local residents and businesses. So that's a lot to implement in about 1 year's time. Cal Recycle also expects that most of the costs borne on this will come from local budgets and ratepayers. We'll go into that a little bit more, but these are, again, a very, extensive, challenging requirements with very little funding. So next slide, please. I'm tag teaming with Adriana Figueroa on this tonight. She's going to go into exactly what this means for the city of Paramount over the next 12 months as you prepare, actually for the next 7 months as you prepare to be ready to implement 1383 on January 1st, 2022. So I will hand it over to Adriana for a few minutes.
Thank you, Christine. Madam Mayor and members of the council, I'll take it over from here, at least for the next couple of slides. Specifically, we're going to need to create enforceable ordinances that would require compliance from residents and businesses by January 1st, 2022. We will need to create an organic waste procurement policy and food recovery agreements. In fact, we are currently working on these extensive documents, and we'll be bringing that to you in the coming months. Additionally, we will need to inspect trash containers for contamination and compliance. We will also need to implement what is called the third trash bin that is properly labeled in order to collect not just green waste as it exists today for residential properties, but also include in that waste, green waste container, food scraps. We will need to keep track and notify the generators of any potential contamination issues within those containers, whether it's for residential or commercial. And we'll need to create, of course, a massive education campaign. So next slide. We will also need to create and implement a food recovery program and find local partners. We need to procure recover materials and enforce, of course, violators. We have already begun discussions with CalMet regarding this, and they have actually brought on board a team of consultants that will help with the various aspects of the implementation of SB 1383. That will likely necessitate new rates with our trash hauler to accommodate these additional and required services. So I will now turn it over to Christine to complete the presentation.
Thank you. Next slide. So as Adriana has detailed, again, these programs include a lot of moving parts. They include monitoring and record keeping, which pose a significant cost to local governments. And there's really a lack of funding from the state on these this regulation. There's not much flexibility at this point in meeting that January 1st, 2022 deadline. And we simply don't have the infrastructure to really take that organic waste into large facilities at this time, and that's statewide. So there are challenges to meeting these regulations. On top of that, it is extremely expensive. These are Cal Recycle's numbers that I've taken from one of their reports, but they estimate that it'll cost $20 billion over 11 years statewide to implement SB 1383. And again, from Cal Recycle, they do expect that these costs will be distributed among ratepayers and amongst all ratepayers, including half from households and half from residences. From businesses. And we know this is a challenging time during the COVID, as we come out of the COVID pandemic, for both constituencies to be bearing increased costs for these types of services. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go into, I've talked about the challenges. Adrienne has talked about what you have to do in the near future. Let me talk about what we're doing on the legislative front and with the states on how we might be able to find some limited relief for cities in trying to meet this deadline by January 21st, January 2022. Can you forward the next slide, please? Thank you. So what we've identified as the challenges, I briefly listed them, but the infrastructure capacity, just to meet the secret requirements to find and to site these anaerobic digesters or other composting facilities is very, very difficult. That secret requirements can be time consuming, and we will run into these challenges in implementation for 13.3. There is a lack of funding for cities to implement this. We are going to have to bear these costs on our own at this point in time. There are significant penalties for violations that could be assessed up to $10,000 a day for both local governments and some private businesses. You'll probably recall that our stormwater requirements are very similar. These fines are real, and the state does intend to comply with these penalties if cities aren't meeting the deadlines under 1383. The procurement costs are very challenging for cities also, and just the scope of regulations are very complicated. We tend to disagree at Cal Cities. The 1383 language and then the interpretation from Cal Recycle and the rulemaking. Can you go into the next slide, and I'll just talk about, we have had meetings with Cal Recycle. We have commented on all their regulations, and we have met with the legislature on numerous occasions, as well as the administration, to talk about what these challenges are. Again, not that cities don't want to comply with meeting these reductions in greenhouse gas emissions and climate pollutants, but really in the timeline and the aggressiveness that the legislature and Cal Recycle put on cities to meet these. When you talk about a 1-year time period to implement this, for any local government, that's very challenging. And so what we have today, what we have in front of you on this slide is how cities are going to meet these costs. And I've done this presentation around town, and we know that many cities are looking at rate increases to meet 1383. Cal City conducted a statewide survey earlier this year on what cities are doing now to implement and look at their rate savings. And we know that 7 out of 10 cities anticipate a 1 to 20% increase to meet 1383 requirements. This is really significant, and we know that your neighboring cities are also doing the same. It's so significant that some cities are looking at as much as 20%. So those are significant costs to both residents and businesses. I encourage you to keep this. I think Adriana is handing this out to you, but it's hard to see on this slide. But as you look at the pie charts and how much cities are looking at rate increases and for what, it's pretty significant at a time when we're trying to recover from the COVID pandemic. And I want to reiterate that cities are supposed to receive American Recovery Plan funds from the federal government. Those funds can't be used for 1383 implementation. So this has to be a ratepayer-borne cost. So I just want to make that distinction that there's a lot of programs and a lot of planning with that ARP money that can't be used to implement the complex programs in SB 1383. Next slide, please. So we have been working as Cal Cities on a number of different fronts. I mentioned that we have been talking and meeting with Cal Recycle and participating in their formal rulemaking process. There hasn't been much progress in getting some wiggle room for local governments on that front. Instead, we have been looking to the legislature now to, one, get some flexibility in meeting these requirements, get some time delay in that January 2022 deadline, and find some funding for us so that we don't have to bear a lot of this cost on ratepayers. The status of that is still up in the air. We have been working with Senator John Laird, he's up in the Monterey, Santa Cruz area, on SB 619. Originally, this bill would have given us a lot of time and more flexibility in meeting the 1383 requirements. Unfortunately, there are a lot of advocates on the other who don't support giving cities more flexibility in this area. We've met some political challenges. The bill has been amended recently in the legislature, and at this point, SB 1619 would still require local governments to meet the 1383 requirements by January 1st, 2022, but CalRecycle would not enforce any penalties if cities have shown that they're trying to meet those regulations, but have not yet met the full compliance deadline by that date. And I do want to thank your Public Works Director, Adriana Figueroa, and all your staff. She testified in committee last week to support this bill moving forward. We're still in strong discussions with the legislature. She spent a lot of time advocating, particularly with Senator Gonzalez, who was on the committee that passed this last week. And I'm happy to at least mention that Senator Laird and Senator Ben Ellen, who's from the Santa Monica area, mentioned in that committee with Senator Gonzalez that they're committed to discussions on finding funding sources for local governments to implement that. So that's a positive discussion in this area. But we still need your help to move that goal to get the legislature to at least help us in meeting 1383 requirements. There's no doubt that local governments want to help in this climate change fight, but we just need the tools to do it. And especially after COVID, we need the flexibility to get it done. We know we can get it done. We just need to work with our state partners. So what I'm going to ask from you all tonight is that you talk to your legislators, both the Speaker and Senator Gonzalez, about the impacts that this type of regulation has immediately on the city of Paramount. The city of Paramount is probably the best city in the district because of your sustainability successes that you've had. So I look forward to working with you on this issue, and with that, I'll take any questions.
I think your mic's low. Is it?
Can you hear me now?
There you go.
Hi, Christine. Good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. You know what? I do have one question. Are the penalties 10,000? Is it 10,000 a year?
They could be up to $10,000 a day.
A day.
Just like the stormwater. And we don't anticipate that CalRecycle will begin enforcing those penalties right away. But in severe cases, they could reach up to $10,000 a day. And that's very similar to the fines that local governments face in not meeting their stormwater compliance efforts.
All right. Do we have any questions, comments from council?
More regulations.
I know.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes, absolutely.
Either Adriana or Christine. I have a question because I know when 1383 first came out as talked about bill, there was a lot of advocates in the climate change arena that were really for it until something was thrown in there called code digestion. Do you know what I'm talking about on that? Either one of you? Co-digestion, sewer sludge, industrial waste that went into this bill. So a lot of the advocates for the environmental and the environmental environment are against this rule now because they're looking at putting co-digestion language in there. So it's getting a lot of pushback.
Adriana. Well, the legislation is already passed. The legislation was passed and signed in 2017. So at this point, the interpretation, let me answer your question. I do not know about the co-digestion at this, in the bill, and it's a pretty extensive bill. It's about 60 pages. But we're at the point where the law has already been passed, and CalRecycle, the regulatory agency, is using that bill language to create regulations. So I'm not aware of any environmental organizations that aren't advocating for cities and counties to get this to meet the January 1st, 2022 deadline.
Yes, Councilmember Guillen, I am not familiar with the co-digestion, but I can look at it.
Okay, because, yeah, I was contacted that I guess the USCPA and the Water Board and some environmental groups met, I want to say 2 weeks ago. And the whole issue, I guess because implementation is coming up, and the technical term, I guess, is called co-digestion, and it has to do with sewer sludge, and then it has to do with, and particularly someplace like Paramount with metal waste and chrome plating waste into the sewer sludge with this rule. So if you could look into it, I would appreciate it.
Sure, I will. What I am familiar with is the processing of the organic waste. And so organic material like, food scraps, when you process that material, there's a lot of liquid that comes out of it. And that liquid goes through a processing plant through the sewer system. That's what I'm familiar with, but I haven't heard of a co-digester. I can look.
Check it out. Okay,
Absolutely.
thanks.
All right, any more comments, questions, or discussion about this item? All right, is this it's just oral report. Well, thank you, Christine. Thank you for joining us tonight.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our next oral report is our Consumer Confidence Report 2020.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Council, the last item is a review of the 2020 Consumer Confidence Report, also known as our annual water quality report. This year's report has been mailed to water account holders, and once again, the report shows that our water quality meets all standards. This year's report also includes a notice that I previously mentioned to the City Council. In May of 2020, we received an administrative violation related to our water sampling procedure, which occurred on a particular day in 2020. Adriana Figueroa, our Public Works Director, will go over the 2020 Consumer Confidence Report, explain in detail the matter involving the sampling procedure, and I also like to point out two members from our water department are in the audience with us tonight to answer any technical questions that might come up. Adriana?
Thank you, John. Madam Mayor and members of the City Council, let me go through the presentation. The EPA requires that all community water systems deliver a consumer confidence report, also known as the CCR. And this is done annually, and it's sent to customers. That report contains information about the local drinking water quality, and it includes information such as the source of water, the regulated compounds, a summary of risk and health effects of certain compounds, and a summary of testing results throughout the year. I should mention that the CCRs are provided based on all the information collected for that prior year. So the CCR published in 2021 is for calendar year 2020. The regulation mandates that the CCR be made available to customers by July 1st of any given year. So the CCR itself looks like this, and it is essentially a booklet that falls in half. It includes the water service map, and it is usually available only online. However, this year we are mailing printed copies to all account holders this week, actually. The CCRs are printed in both English and Spanish and include several topics in the form of questions, such as the ones you see on the screen. I won't read them all out loud, but it covers questions such as where does my water come from, what are the drinking water standards, and how do I read the tables, among others. The CCR includes a table of water testing data for that particular year lists any exceedances to maximum contaminant levels, or MCLs, established for any particular compound. It also lists definitions and abbreviations that will assist the reader in understanding these very, very busy tables. So as has been the case for many years, the 2020 CCR results indicate that there are no water quality violations of any kind and that our Paramount water meets all federal and state drinking water quality standards. I cannot stress that enough, so I will repeat it. Paramount water meets all drinking water quality standards. Having said that, this year's CCR does include a notification that has not been included before based on an administrative misstep. The state's Drinking Water Division requires the city to also provide its customers with notice of any irregularities in how testing or sampling is conducted. This year's CCR includes such notice regarding a violation the city received for not following an administrative step in the procedure for sampling. I'll go into the details in the next slides, but it is important to note that the violation had nothing to do with water quality. It addresses an administrative oversight on our part. So here's the background. On May 7th of last year, 1 of 18 samples was positive for total coliform. This proved to be an anomaly since follow-up testing came back as negative, but I'll go into that later in the presentation. The groundwater rule states that all wells in service on the day of a positive test must be sampled within 24 hours. 2 wells were in service, well 13 and well 15. The closest well to that location was sampled within that 24 hours. However, the well located at the opposite end, which is well 15, was not sampled within that 24-hour period. It was sampled later as part of our routine sampling, and that was done on May 19th. The results came back negative for total coliform. Because we did not sample well 15 at the same time well 13 was sampled, we have received this violation, which is, again, procedural in nature and not a water quality violation. But we are required to notify customers using standard federal templates. These are the same templates used for either administrative issues or water quality issues, and we really have no flexibility on the wording that is used. So I wanted to show you a map of all the 18 sample testing sites located throughout the city. What you see on the right side of your screen is a picture of one of our water operators taking one of these samples. Now let me focus on the map itself. As you can see, the sample locations are all the yellow dots that you see throughout. The blue dots are the well sites. The arrow shows the location of the one positive test, which is sample location number 3. That is located closer to Lakewood on the far east side of the city. Keep in mind this is the only location with that one positive read. We resample that same location the following day in well 13, since it's the closest well that was in operation at the time. Well 13 is located in the middle of your screen. What we didn't do was test well 15, which is located at the far west side of the city and at a significant distance from that sample location number 3. It should be noted that well 14 was not in operation at the time. Also, let me reiterate what I mentioned before, and that's that all the yellow dots you see on the screen, with the exception of site number 3, tested negative for total coliform. So now I'd like to go over the sample itself, which was sampling for total coliform. Total coliform is a group of bacteria naturally found in the environment. It is commonly found in plant material and soil. This particular sampling is highly sensitive in that it can pick up very tiny particles that may be carried in the air from a variety of activity nearby. It can come from construction in a back or side yard or any nearby pets roaming around. So what happens when a sample is confirmed to be positive? It basically triggers a signal for the presence of possible issues with the current treatment disinfection dosage that may need to be adjusted. But before that is done, additional follow-up testing will need to be conducted. In this particular case, as you have heard, all resamples came back negative, so there was no need for any follow-up testing. We typically conduct up to 93 total coliform tests each month at various locations and well sites. And we have had no positive results in the last 7 years. And I'll show you that on the table on the next slide. Oh. Okay, thank you. I mentioned that a positive test for total coliform is rare in Paramount. In fact, prior to 2020, the only other time this has happened was back in 2013. And this is the interesting part. Back then, when that positive sample came in, we also followed the very same steps and resampled that site as well as the closest well in operation. All confirmation resamples came back negative, of course, but the state at that time did not alert us that we should have also tested the other wells in operation. So our staff followed the same process this time around. Once again, a positive test for total coliform in our water system is rare and usually an anomaly, and it is sometimes referred to by some people as a false positive. So getting back to the notice you will find on in this year's publication of the CCR for 2020, regardless of the specific template we were required to use for notification, the violation that it references is for not following an administrative step in the procedure for sampling. It is not a water quality violation. In fact, when we were preparing the CCR, we included that information on the water quality tables, and the State Drinking Water Division asked us to revise it and take it out because it is not a water quality violation, but simply administrative in nature. That notice that you see there is in English and Spanish, and once again, it follows prescribed templates. To conclude, information is currently being uploaded to our ParamountEnvironment.org website so that customers can find additional information regarding their notice, and we are assigning a dedicated water quality specialist to respond to any questions or concerns via phone at the 562-220-2020 or via email at publicworks@paramountcity.com. We are committed to continuing to provide safe and clean water to our customers, as we have for many, many decades. And that concludes my presentation, but I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Adriana. What a detailed explanation. I mean, I followed you the whole way. Is there any comments or questions from council?
No, just totally agree with the mayor. Was very clear. Yes. Yeah, exactly what happened, exactly, what it is. I guess I do have one curiosity, but what is it? Coliform?
Total coliform bacteria. It's basically bacteria.
Bacteria? Mm-hmm. And often it's false positives, huh?
Many times is what it is.
Interesting.
Many, many times, yeah.
Other questions or comments? No?
No, that was great. My dad always has said since I can remember that, you can drink Paramount water, so I can tell him that he can continue to drink Paramount water.
Absolutely. There is nothing wrong with the water quality in Paramount.
You've got some nods in the back.
Yeah, you've got, we've got, by the way, Norma Mea is our water superintendent, and David Arellano, our water supervisor. Highly technical people that really know their stuff.
Thank you for doing great things and protecting us. We appreciate it.
Yes. Even when I'm gardening, I'm drinking water from the hose. So I love doing that.
Thank you guys for all your hard work.
Thank you, Adriana.
All right. So with that, we will move on to comments from council members. And we'll start with Councilmember Aguayo.
Okay, so just a couple things. Regarding the air monitors and AQMD, we do hear you. We do hear our residents. This is obviously a discussion that's not going to go away. So please continue, just letting us know what your concerns are, because I'm sure that some of the same concerns and questions you have, we may have. And so we can bring those up at those discussions. So we hear you. The other thing is this Friday, if you're looking for something to do, we have our farmers market in the evening. I've been kind of looking forward to that. But yeah, it's going to be right out here on Jackson from was it 5 p.m. to 9?
Yes, Councilmember.
5 p.m. to 9. And like I said, I'm looking forward to. Evening instead of the day. Something else to do. fresh produce, and I'm sure there's going to be other, other vendors, and, check that out. And lastly, Tom and Vivian, we're praying for you. We're praying for you. That's all I have, God bless.
Yep, we are. Councilmember Lemons.
I know this is going to shock you, but I don't have anything to say.
All right. Claire Stallings, Vice Mayor.
I have quite a bit.
All right.
This past week, I was on a virtual town hall meeting with the American Rescue Plan, and it was regarding the rent relief. Congresswoman Robal had it, and you can check it out on our website. It's it's helping with utilities, it's helping with housing, it's helping with rental, your mortgage or your rent. And I think this is very, very helpful. I attended the neighborhood watch meeting with my colleagues, and it was very informative. It was a firework summit, which was very helpful. And thank you, Adriana Lopez, for hosting that. And I also attended the same day with Mayor Brenda Olmos, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department food drive that they had at the park. And also at the same time, Clinica Latina was conducting vaccinations for our residents. So we were inviting them to come and get boxes of food. And also this past week we had the sketching for the converter things that the Cadillac converters that were that are being stolen in the neighborhoods. So that was very successful.
The catalytic converters.
Yes,
Catalytic.
converters. Yes.
Catalytic.
Thank you, Peggy. And also, I also attended the Paramount Pride Scholarship Foundation free food box, and that was very successful. I went for a little while, and they were waiting for some eggs and oranges, and I needed to go and attend something else, so I left. But then I seen social media. I seen our mayor Brenda Olmos with a lot of Paramount students and also alumni, and I happen to be an alumni, and my husband too. At this time, I would like to ask my colleagues, I would like to have a book drive for the immigrant kids that are staying at the Long Beach Convention Center. I noticed that the city of Long Beach is having one. They're asking the residents to participate and donate a new book in Spanish or English. I was hoping that, David, we could place a couple of boxes maybe in front of City Hall or other areas in Paramount and have the city deliver them. My brother's helping out quite a bit during this at the convention center. He says there are several cities participating and delivering books for these kids, or new toys like games, sealed, originally wrapped. But I would love to do that as being a former librarian for the city, for Paramount Unified School District. That really touches my heart. And I went ahead and filled out the information sheet to volunteer. So I'm waiting to hear back. But my brother said it's very touching. He says just to see all the children. He says he believes the youngest ones are 3 years old. He says, but they're being very well taken care of. And last, to my Paramount Unified School District teachers, it's Teacher Appreciation Week. And being a former employee and being one of your librarians, thank you. Thank you for your dedication, hard working during this COVID-19 situation. All of you are amazing teachers. And I am so ever grateful. I'm grateful on behalf of my grandchildren. I'm grateful for my neighbors around. You have gone beyond what your duties are as a teacher. And I've even had, my daughter works at Jackson School. Her principal has gone out and asked families what their needs are, or why kids aren't participating, why aren't they online, and see how they can help. Maybe their Chromebook broke, or see if you need food. So reach out to your schools. and your principals are there to help out too, residents. I want you to know that. And last, like Councilmember Aguayo says, we're going to have Friday night market. I'm really looking forward to that. And we're going to have food and crafts and all kinds of great things. So I'm looking forward to that. But anyway, Tom and Vivian, I'm praying for both of you. You're in deep thought, and we're praying as a family that you will get over this and God will heal you. Thank you for joining and listening to the City Council meeting tonight. Good night. Y que Dios los bendiga.
All right, thank you, Claire Stallings, our Vice Mayor. All right, on the final one for the night. I do want to report that we actually had our first meeting of our ad hoc subcommittee on our homelessness. I have to tell you, I sat in this meeting with Adriana and her team, and I was so impressed with all of the resources that our homeless individuals have in our city. You can probably second me on that. I think we sat there and we were just like, wow, we didn't know about that. We didn't know about this. But so, during that meeting, we talked a little bit about the status of homelessness in Paramount, the current approach to solving some of this homelessness, and again, about the resources. We were educated on a website called lahop.ois? Am I right on that?
It's lahop.
lahop.ois, right? Am I right? Yes.
Yes, I believe so. But
It's
if
a
you just
referral
put in LA
website,
Hop,
right?
it'll come up. It's
Okay.
a portal.
And it's a referral website to actually report homeless individuals who may need resources. And I think we did discuss this with staff that at some time we will be doing a presentation not only to the council but to the residents as well, just of how much you guys are doing to help this population. And thank you for that. Everybody I think mentioned also, I just again want to just say thank you to LA County Sheriff and to Paramount Pride for providing food to our citizens, our residents this past couple weeks, as well as Clínica Médica Hispana, Coast Hospital of Norwalk, Paramount Family Pharmacy, and our staff for still working on getting our residents successfully vaccinated. We did talk about the Friday night market. I just want to say thank you to staff. This is an opportunity. It's actually going to be the first Friday night market where we have Paramount resident entrepreneurs that are going to be able to be out there and showcase their items. So thank you, staff, for getting that done. I know these people are really excited to be a part of this Friday night market. And then lastly, just invite the residents to attend our National Day of Prayer, which will be on Thursday, May 6th at exactly 12:10 at the Veterans Memorial Plaza. So we hope to see you there. And that's all I have. And again, yeah, Tom and Vivian, you are all in our hearts. We're praying for you. John, is there any comments from staff?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just a couple. You did mention the homeless subcommittee, just to piggyback on what you had said. We are definitely going to do a campaign and a public information campaign blitz, as the subcommittee had requested to get the information out. In fact, I believe there's a piece coming out tomorrow in the mayor's update that hits our social media platforms, so that'll come out. Steve Comperlios, our homeless coordinator, does do an annual report, so we'll get him back in here to provide another annual report for you. I think he's due probably soon. I'm not sure exactly when. So we will definitely get him back in here again to do his annual report, the follow-up, and insert some of those things that were kind of aha moments for the subcommittee when you were there. And lastly, on behalf of the staff, I'd like to wish each and every one of you a happy Mother's Day this week.
All right.
That's unique. You get to wish the entire
I
city.
know. I think I'm one of the only city managers in LA County to do that, right?
All right, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting to a joint meeting with the Planning Commission on May 18th at 4 o'clock, followed by City Council meeting beginning at 5 p.m. So this meeting is adjourned, and we will move over to our successor agency for the Paramount Redevelopment Agency. I will go ahead and call to order. Can I get a roll call of council members, please?
Councilmember Aguayo.
Here.
Councilmember Guillen. Councilmember Lemons.
Here.
Vice Mayor Cuera Stallings.
Here.
Mayor Olmos.
I'm here. Do we need a motion to excuse Councilmember Guillen for? Yes. Can I get a motion to excuse Councilmember Guillen, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Quer Stallings, a second by Aguayo. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. Do we have any public comments at this time?
No, ma'am.
All right. Okay, I'll go ahead and take a motion for the consent calendar, please.
Move it, Lemons.
Second, Quer Stallings.
All right, I have a motion by Lemons, second by Quer Stallings. Can I get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Aguayo?
Yes.
Councilmember Lemons?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Quer Stallings?
Yes.
Mayor Olmos?
Yes. All right, we will go ahead and adjourn this meeting to June 1st, 2021 at 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for a great meeting.